3, 2, 1, let's go.
152 yards. Should be just a nice, comfortable 9-iron for him. They're going to go nuts when he hits this thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, golf fans of the internet, welcome into the Preferred Lines podcast. I got 3 words for you as always. Yo, yo, yo. I'm your host, Joe Idoni. My partner next to me is John Hasselbauer. We're less than 2 weeks away from the first major championship of the season, but we don't want to overlook the Valero Texas Open this week. We're going to preview that. We're going to cover a big week in terms of storylines in the world of professional golf. John, are you strapped in and ready to go tonight or what?
Big week, big week. The Masters is right around the corner, but it's not a look-ahead week. We're focused on Valero and everything else happening in the golf world. The TGL recap, the tiger of it all. There's a lot to cover this week in the thick of the Texas swing. And I do also want to add, because it's been a couple weeks since I last hit an outright. But those who follow along the show know that I reinvest my winnings back into the shed every time I hit a winner. And I'm happy to say that the 4K projector arrived this weekend, and we have installed 4K projection into the tout house, courtesy of Mr. Cameron Young at the Players Championships. Thank you, Cam. We are living in 4K. It actually has no bearing on the content of Live from the Tout House because it's all screen capped. But for me, it's much more enjoyable to be playing these courses in 4K. So just a little update from me. Vibes are good, regardless if I hit a winner in the last couple weeks or not.
Vibes are extremely high. We're getting 4K installations. We've got a ton to talk about. I hate that the TGL Championship has kind of got buried this week in the other news, but we're going to talk about it, as well as much more, as of course presented by the #1 source in terms of PGA Tour content from a betting perspective each and every week. You know what I'm talking about. We are powered by the Read the Line Network. Stop surfing all these different websites and social media channels. We are a one-stop shop. You get me, you get John. Of course, you get the one and only Keith Stewart, PGA professional for nearly 20 years. Now he is the only betting specific guy that's going to be credentialed in Augusta National next week. Everything you possibly need available in the newsletters from LPGA, PGA, wind, weather, matchups each and every day of the week throughout the week. The one and only Read the Line Network proudly powers us. John, we just got to get more people to be a better. The time is now. That promo code is Lines. You're going to get Lines 25% off your membership. Link in the bio. Come on over. Join the squad. No better time than now.
Yes, sir. No better time than now. It's Masters Week. Keith is going to be down Magnolia Lane, sharing whatever he's allowed to share publicly. It's a tight knit group down there, but he will be down there spreading all of the From the Grounds news that you're not going to get anywhere else. So definitely smash that sub button, link, whatever it is in the newsletter format.
Become a subscriber, folks. Listen, last year, Keith told me, now, listen, the housing situation around Augusta National, if you don't know, if you've never been there, can get a little sketchy outside of Magnolia Lane. Our guy, Keith Stewart, was forced to check out of his hotel room, pack his entire suitcase into his car each and every night out of fear that someone was going to break into said hotel room, drive his suitcase in the back of a car down Magnolia Lane, parking there each and every week. We're working on getting him in the Hilton this year. You got to subscribe to Read the Line in order for us to do so. John, I'm just kidding, of course. What I'm not kidding about is the resurgent routing of the absolute field in an emotional win. I see you're rocking the QZ for our guy, Gary Woodland, 2019 U.S. Open champ. You had him that week. I had him that week. I've met Gary down at Pine Tree down the road here in Delray Beach. Just an amazing person. 2 years removed from brain surgery. He talked about the issues in PTSD that he's been dealing with, opened up about those struggles at the Players Championship when I was there a couple of weeks ago. What an absolute amazing story. Not the best week I would say, for that to come out, but it's certainly a bright spot in the world of golf and in the world of sport. Congratulations to Gary Woodland. What were your thoughts on what was a remarkable victory?
Yeah, I mean, Gary Woodland, a guy I will root for in every circumstance, brain tumor or not. Like, if health was all good, I would be rooting for Gary Woodland ever since the 2019 US Open win. That's what made me fall in love with golf betting. Just sweating that as a really actually the exact same price he was at Houston, like 125 to 1 was his number at Pebble. So now, when you see a 125 next to Gary Woodland's name, you just bet it. That's his number. That's his lucky number. Keep hitting it. Um, I love Gary Woodland. It's one of the best stories in sports all of this year. We'll talk a lot about it. I have some more thoughts on that for later in the show. But just absolutely gutted the field. Total, like, in complete control from beginning to end. And look, like, this was a course where everybody who was bombing it and had control of their irons was going low. So it's not even like, there's only so many people who could play well here. Like, you look at the top of this leaderboard and it's a bunch of guys that look and play exactly like Gary Woodland, and he just had it all going for him. It's an amazing story. I don't know where you rank this, how you can rank this as far as like storylines this year. You probably, like, I don't know, the Team USA winning the hockey Olympics is very high up there. This is like a top 3 or top 5 moment in all of sports in 2026. I know we're only 3 months in, but this one is gonna be a memorable one for a long time.
Absolutely, 100% agree. Hard to contextualize how much that it meant to him. I think he was fortunate to play not in Florida. It's a little easier to protect the big lead when you can kind of spray it all around Memorial Park than it is in the confines of the state that I live in. But listen, absolutely nuking it, 190 plus mile an hour ball speed with regularity, striping his irons, has figured something out with the putter. Can he keep this going? Like, we're heading into Augusta. Like, he looked really good last week at the Valero, or excuse me, at the Valspar. Backs it up with a victory here. Like, what are the expectations moving forward for Gary? Like, here's the thing: honesty, John, in almost everything in life is a hell of a drug. So him being able to be honest in that release of that weight that he had been carrying with him, it would weigh anyone down. So just putting it all out there, being genuine, being true to yourself, and letting people know this is what I'm dealing with, I think was a huge uplifting moment for Gary in this struggle, and it allowed him to kind of free up to play his best golf, which he's certainly doing. Augusta is a phenomenal fit for someone with his particular skill set. Do you have expectations and like another serious run moving forward from Woodland?
Yeah, I mean, I watched the tail end of the broadcast today because the early going of it was, okay, he's already running away with this. Like, three holes into this, Gary's on fire, and I needed Thor Bjornsson to go like 3 birdies to start for me to have any chance. So I got some things done around the house in the early on, but I didn't want to miss the end of it, so I watched the last like 5 or 6 holes. And immediately in Gary's post presser interview, he came out and said, "This is the best I've ever played. This is the best I've ever felt about my game. I'm 42 years old. I'm hitting it farther. I feel better about my driver." You look at the numbers. Yeah, he's gaining like 20 yards on the field in distance every single week, regardless of course. And last week was the first time he gained on approach all season. So that's why I was a little bit like, I'm not ready to jump in on this boat yet. But you look at what he did at Houston, and it's like, he is really getting all the pieces together. And it's these courses like Memorial Park where the approach shots are all 200 yards out. That's always been Gary's bread and butter. Even though he won at Pebble Beach, like, he's always been a long iron guy. So there's always going to be correlation between Memorial Park and Augusta. It's not by accident. Like, Brooks Koepka came in, advised, wanted this to be a test because it's always going to fall in the week or two before Augusta. And yeah, I mean, I think he can keep this train going. I mean, I'm not going to play psychiatrist here, or psychologist. I always confuse the two. I'm not going to get inside his brain.
Yeah.
But the way I kind of think of it is like, if you're struggling with PTSD and there's a lot of like lows that you go down, winning is a hell of a drug. And this high that he's going to be on, he's going to want to continue to chase that. Like, I don't think he's going to like celebrate and party and fall off the wagon here,
Right.
getting so happy about this win. Like, I think it's in an infectious thing to win and to feel this feeling and to feel that support. I think he's going to continue to chase that. So I don't think this is going to go away right away. I think Gary might be here to stay a little bit.
I love to hear that. Speaking of which, like he was in that final group next to a couple of other bombers. I mean, and he's sending it past Nikolai Højgaard. He's sending it past Min Woo Lee. But you look at that leaderboard, and I think it's a lot of what we talked about, right? Gotterup obviously made his run. You had Min Woo there, Jake Knapp, a lot of guys, including Thor Bjornsson, who just full send 190-mile-an-hour ball speed off the tee. Changed the way at all, John, when looking back on this event, that you may just simplify the handicapping process moving forward, thinking 2027 at the Houston Open?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this at the show this time
Right.
last week. Like, everybody's saying it's Bombers Paradise. And I still think it's more than just Bombers Paradise. Like, if when I think of Bombers Paradise, I'm thinking of the Dante Vallarta or like the Puerto Rico Open, where it doesn't really matter what kind of form you're in, just get it as close as you can to the green and it becomes a
Yeah.
wedge fest and putting contest. That's still not what the Houston Open is. The Houston Open can be taken down by the guys who have the shortest clubs in, regardless if they're in the fairway or rough, which we knew. So that's where the distance is the advantage. But you have to hit long irons well consistently. And that's the through line. It's not just that they're bombers. The top of this leaderboard, you've got Gary Woodland, Minwoo, Gotterup, Højgaard, Knapp, Yella Miraju, Kiefer, Thorbjornsen. They're all talented ball strikers in good approach form who happen to bomb it. So that's the approach I'm going to take at this event next year. It should be an easier one for us to handicap. And it is one where like you can go a little bit further down the board as long as you check just those two boxes: distance, approach, with a favoring the long iron approaches.
Absolutely. You aren't going to find two guys on any show that are more supportive of Gary Woodland than here. Congrats, Gary. You earned that. We feel so happy for you. Putting a bow kind of on the Houston Open and kind of looking ahead. Actually, you know, one last thing before we leave Houston. A couple of guys there that will be the last time that we see them before Augusta National. Do anything to you, John, in terms of like the look aheads to the futures market? Like Brooks was obviously terrible. Do you think his number drifts because of that?
I think it should, but although it is pretty high as it is, it's like the high 30s now
Yeah.
for a guy like Brooks, who's actually shown good form. It doesn't need to show form to show up in a major. It's already a good number. I could see it get to 40. I don't think it's going to get any further than 40. I don't think it's a bad number. I'm not going to jump on it right now because I'm not feeling great about his last impression here. But Brooks could end up on my card still. He could say some things in media week that get me back on board. I've already bet him like 3 weeks in a row, so I'm afraid to jump off. But the two guys that really caught my attention this week, and I was circling around them, and they might have just pushed me far enough to hop on. Min Woo at 66-1 is just a good number. He was top 15 in his debut. And as soon as I saw him play here for the first time, I was like, Min Woo is going to be a problem here for a while. And the approach looked really good at Houston. And as we said with Gary, if it's the same approach as in the Augusta, you need to hit it high. You need to have a shorter club than everybody else into these greens. And he's actually looking good on approach. So Min Woo has caught my eye. And Sahith, you know, he's up at like 80, 90-1. He is playing some great golf right now. Give him some forgiving, generous landing areas on the fairway and let him cook the rest of the way through. I would love to see Sahith in the mix on Sunday. He's had such a good year so far.
I'll say this as we transition into TGL. Sahith looked really bad. I know
Oh
you
yeah,
were asking me to look it up. Like even in warmups, John, like he was like missing the freaking driving range fairway. He had his wrist taped up, which
yeah, I
I
noticed
think
that.
he might be dealing with a little bit of a wrist injury, which has caused him to lose that with the driver. But then he like just when like he hit 3 penalty shots in the first match, but then wins the match for them.
Right.
Same in the second one. He was terrible. He hit one in the water, got them down early, comes back with a huge 3-pointer for them. Like clutched up in moments. And it was really fun afterwards. Someone asked him about it, and he was like, Yeah, I hit really he was like honest. He's like, I hit really bad shots a lot. But part of what I think is fun about golf is finding these like unique ways to escape and rebound from those really bad shots. And I'm really good at that. And it was really like an honest assessment of where he's at as a player. He understands where he needs to improve, but he also doesn't get down on himself. He looks at it almost as like an opportunity of like, yeah, A to B golf is boring for me. I like going off the map and finding a way to still make birdie. So interesting stuff from Sahith there. Going back to the week that was for Mr. Tiger Woods. It was an interesting one, and it started for me at TGL. So I joked about it Monday with almost everyone there. So I'm sitting there in the press conference, and they lost, and they were angry that they lost. And I had a question written down, John. I wanted to ask him. And the question was, Tiger, I know you're like, because at this point, everyone had asked him every week, like, are you going to play? So I was going to say, Tiger, I know you're not going to tell us like if you're going to play, but how bad do you want to play? And I like kind of chickened out of that question just because he was getting really short and they were angry that they lost. So I pivoted to something like a softball one. But, anyways, we're leaving the media center and I'm walking out of the building and I get the word that he's going to play. I couldn't believe it. And we had talked about it, we had speculated on it. I tweeted it out immediately. Um, he had basically like kept the comm staff, didn't tell them earlier in the day, didn't tell them until after the match that he planned to play. So it goes crazy. Tuesday arrives. I'm live streaming his golf shots. He looked pretty good, I would say. Like, he didn't really hit any bad shots. He was fine. He wasn't the reason that they lost. It was really bad decision making in terms of hammer timing by Max Homa there. But like, well, did you see any of it? Like, what were your takeaways? Because I didn't get to hear him talk on the coverage. Like, what were your, I guess, from a viewing perspective, takeaways of how Tiger Woods looked in TGL and like how you thought the championship kind of played out?
Yeah, well, I was tuned into your live stream for the warm-ups.
All
I was on a
right.
quick 24-hour train back and forth to Boston on a work trip, and I was just sitting on the Amtrak on the way home at whatever it was, like 7 o'clock. So I was tuned into the live stream, and then I was watching him. We didn't get to see a ton of shots from him. My expectations were going to be low. I wasn't even sure that he would play better than like Kevin Kisner, who he was subbing in for, but really just his presence in competition is what he brings to the table.
Yeah.
And yeah, like he hit the stinger shot. We know he has that in his bag. I didn't
Mhm.
like the way that he was jerking his body to hit that stinger. That made me feel a little like his leg was gonna snap in
Yeah.
half hitting that shot. It was very torquey. But he was hitting the shots, and last injury, when he was trying to come back, I was like, I can hit the shots, I just can't walk. My hands are there. And now it's like a little bit of everything. Now it's like, well, father time, and I used to be able to recover better than I can, and I can't recover as well anymore. So it's definitely, I'm in like a let's appreciate any golf shots we get to see from Tiger Woods from here on out mode. And
Mhm.
the 2019 Masters ship has sailed for me. That's not my expectation. I don't think it's reality anymore. I'm not going to hold him to that, and just having the opportunity to see him play some golf is enough for me.
Yeah. I hear you. Same with me. Like, I left that excited because it did very much feel like in that post round press conference that he was obviously gearing up for Augusta. He was gearing up. He, I believe, had committed to like the U.S. Open, Senior Open, and was going like he was going to start playing, which is where this sucks. But before we kind of continue along the path of Tiger, congrats obviously to LA Golf Club, my team all year, plus 650, the best team won, despite probably not having their best player. I mean, Colin is like
Yeah.
engineered in a lab for screen sim golf. So they made do with Sahith, who clearly did not have his best stuff, but the best team won. But I'm gonna be honest, like I gotta call balls and strikes here, right? We gotta maintain some media, like we gotta call it like we see it. And I was kind of disappointed in the finals in a lot of reasons, John. Interestingly, there despite Tiger Woods playing, there was a very awkward energy in the building that final night. The place was not sold out. I believe there were a lot of like quote unquote seat fillers in the arena from my perspective. Last year, the championship felt like such a celebratory moment for everyone in the arena, including the TGL people. Like, and I felt a part of that as someone who worked a lot of those matches. Like, not that I'm paid by TGL because I'm not, but I felt like a part of that journey with them. And it was like, wow, like we pulled this off. We completed this. Like, congrats to us. And you just really kind of felt that energy, and it just wasn't there. And I don't know if it was a product of, potentially being two matches that night and then it being over on hole 11, like very suddenly.
Yeah.
Everything kind of like rushed to like build this stage and no one was quite ready for it. But even from the player perspective to what happened in the media center after, to the after party. So, all of that stuff, it was a very weird, ominous feeling. Like, I have to be honest and say that. I believe that the majority of the players were under 2-year deals. So I do expect a fair amount of turnover within the league this offseason, or players switching teams. I don't know why anyone wouldn't want to play it. If they're, especially if they're in the area, I've heard that the fee that they get per match is beyond six figures, and they're playing for $9 million. But when you can't get your best player on one of the best teams to not go to India in order to play in a match down the road for $9 million of semi golf, you may have an underlying issue there in terms of commitment level from the players, where they are at with it, their confidence in whatever it is, the tech, the league. I don't know what it is, but something felt off, John. And I don't know that vibe came through to everyone, but it was certainly present within me.
Yeah, I was looking into the Akshay thing, talking about playing in India over the championship, and it seems like he is a global ambassador for Hero, who was hosting the
Yes.
India Open. So maybe there's some under the table money where it was actually worth it, to play that instead, dollars and cents. I don't know, or maybe it was just important for his heritage to be in India. Who knows? But that did also open the door for Tiger to play match 2. So
Sure.
we're not going to hold it against Akshay, but you're right. It is like, where's everybody's priorities in this? We saw Liv do like a crazy reshuffling of all the teams after a couple of years too. And I don't think anybody was like, what happened to my team? Right.
Yeah.
So I don't think it would be the worst thing if they reshuffled a little bit. I'm a New York guy. Cam Young is a New York guy. The rest of them are absolutely not even close to being New York guys. So I wouldn't mind if they reshuffled it a little bit and got her up on the New York team or something like that, who's like in the area. So they could use that. I'm looking forward to seeing what this expansion looks like. Obviously we've got Detroit is trademarked. There's rumors.
Detroit's in.
We've been hearing like the rumblings. We'd like to get a Texas team in there. Does that mean, if that happens, does that open the door for Scotty and Spieth to come into the league? So it's all speculation. We don't know. It's all rumors, but it would be cool to see a little bit more expansion. I think expansion also helps these guys manage their schedules a little bit better, because they don't have to play as often. Like, there's only so many matches you can do, and you can spread it out a little bit more. So, I've only been to one match this year, and last year I've had a great time. My experience is not the same as yours, because you're well known in the building, and I'm more of a guest. But I've enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what season 3 holds.
Okay, so everyone left that building extremely optimistic because we got to see him hit golf shots. It felt like he was going to play in the Masters. And then it was a real where were you moment on Friday when the news came that unfortunately he clipped a car speeding, rolled over the Range Rover, and then we were awaiting comment from the Martin County Sheriff, who told us at 5 p.m. that Tiger had been arrested and he was in jail. I guess, John, share with me your thoughts on the situation and your take on what has transpired here in the last 48 hours.
Yeah, I mean, first thought was I got the notification, and the notification was like, there's no details on the state of anybody involved in the crash. And I was like, so first impression, oh my God, I hope he's okay. Right. And so that was a real heart stopping moment, not knowing if he was, injured in the crash, or if somebody else was injured in the crash. So that was like very reassuring when it came back. Nobody's hurt. Great. Now let's really unpack this. Like, my feelings are exactly the same as the last car crash that happened, which is, why is he still driving himself around? He has all of this money and he has a history now, which continues to get longer, of putting himself behind the wheel impaired. And you have unlimited money. Uber is a thing. Uber's so much more a thing now than Uber was when these things were happening before. And it seems like he was driving alone too. So I,
Yes.
I would understand it to a degree if he was driving like Charlie or even Kai around, and it's like, I want to be a father and I want to have these moments together with my kid. Then, like, I can understand a little bit of that. Like, I'm a superstar celebrity, but I cherish these real father-son moments, and I don't think there's anything wrong with me until the stuff happens. Like, I could give him the benefit of the doubt for that. I really don't understand why he continues to put himself in these positions when he has all of these resources around him that make it not necessary. And he's fortunate that there was nobody on the other side of this crash
Yeah.
that could press charges or anything, because if somebody pressed charges against him, he would be facing jail time, like, in a serious manner. Whether he, like, seriously injured somebody or minorly injured somebody, you have a history of DUI. You can't keep getting behind the wheel of the car. So it's hard for me to really empathize with Tiger, because he has this history. He knows he can't do this. I'm just glad that he's, healthy from it, and hopefully he learns from it.
Yeah, I think all those things very well said, John. I appreciate your take on that. I agree with almost everything there. I think that it's hard because he doesn't live in a world that we live in, and he never really has since he was a young kid. So everyone around him is facilitating him in certain ways, and he has people on the payroll that I think he could encourage people to be more real around him. But I think they're in fear of potentially losing their job. There were signs there. I saw them up close and personal that something might not be right. But it was difficult, and it's difficult now to really speculate on that. I mean, all of us, myself included, is like, he blew up zero point 0.0. I mean, I think he was probably like, the piss was hot, so to speak, which is why he didn't want to do it. Maybe in multiple areas, but I think that's unfair to really come down until we let this thing sort of play out. I believe he has a court date set 3 weeks from now. Be interested to see if these charges stay or if they don't. But I think that a very immediate rush to judgment, and I noticed that you didn't tweet anything right away. I didn't tweet a hot take right away. We had them. We can share those with each other via text, which we did a little bit, and thoughts on, like, you want to get this stuff off your chest. But I also think that sometimes it's important, and I'll talk more about this later, in the world of the internet, to keep those instantaneous reactions with people that you trust in your inner circle, and to share them openly, as many people did. It's not always fair to that person involved without knowing the full spectrum of the situation. I hope that he gets the help that he needs. We obviously want him to be a part of the world of golf, but I think that it's another reminder that the role models that we cherish in terms of an athletic world are not always true role models. And I did this, and the news broke, and I'm in the car with my son, and my wife's like, Tiger got arrested, and he's like, what? Like shocked, because he sees how closely I hold Tiger, and was so excited about him coming back. And he's like, how could he be arrested? It was asking a lot of questions, and it's just a reminder that um, these aren't necessarily always the people to put on a pedestal as elite human beings. They have an elite skill, and we can appreciate that. But I hope he gets the help he deserves. I think that there's a lot of things that are going to transpire over the next couple of months, where let's let that play out before we issue full on judgment.
Yeah, no, well said. And, just to put a bow on it too, I think, like you said, hope he gets the help he deserves, because I think he may have an issue in his inner circles of people just kind of pushing him too hard. With us being 2 weeks out from the Masters, I'm sure he's going overboard with, whether it's the painkillers, we don't know, we're speculating, but whatever he's taking, he's probably ramping up, some sort of medication so that he can push harder to get his body ready for the Masters. And he needs somebody in his corner to say, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
Like it's like too many yes men around the superstars, I think, is the issue. I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit of like the Riggs take of it too, which is
Yeah.
like, gatekeeping the criticism. The worst thing that you could do in this instance, if you care about Tiger Woods, like, you got to shoot him straight, give him the constructive feedback, and let him know we got to be better than this.
Yeah, it's like so much stuff to talk about there, and I'm sure you'll hear enough of it from all the podcasts out there. John, just let's do, before we get into Valero, because we're 30 minutes in here. We definitely want to get to that preview. We usually do bullish and bearish. It doesn't. Maybe let's do without bearish this week. Okay, because we don't want to focus too much on the negativity. Let's get back in a positive mindset before we shift over to TPC San Antonio. John, give me quickly, what's something in the world of sport or golf that you are bullish on and you're buying this week?
Okay, so actually a good transition. We will
Great.
end on a high note, but I'm bearish on vulnerability.
Okay.
And this is vulnerability, obviously, in the context of Gary Woodland, who opens his heart to everybody to endear him and publicly say, I'm going through this. It's not okay. I'm dealing with it. But I want you to know that I'm dealing with this because it might inspire other people. I don't think it's a coincidence that weeks later he goes on and wins because he gets this onus off of his chest. And then in the interview afterwards, he uses his platform to say, if anybody else is experiencing things like I did, I hope this helps inspire you. Complete open vulnerability can be seen as like a negative sometimes. Like, there's certain climates, if you say like I'm not okay, it's frowned upon. And I'm just really happy to see that with Gary Woodland, it was celebrated. And I think there's a dichotomy to this with the Tiger Woods situation,
Hmm.
where he's not telling people that he's not okay. He's not
Mhm.
going into these press conferences and answering honestly how ready or not he is. Because if he took more of a Gary Woodland approach in the media and said, I'm not even close and I need to take all of these medications just to maybe have a chance to play, it's going to hurt his ego. But people are going to side with that, and they're going to,
Mhm.
they're going to be on his side and root him on and understand, oh, okay, he's human. He's not this superhuman entity. He's just like me, and we go through these same struggles. I think he'd be surprised at how endeared people are. But when you're a superstar, you don't like to come back down to earth. And I just thought it was a really interesting juxtaposition between two storylines this week between Gary Woodland and Tiger Woods.
Phenomenal take. And I think the difference there is vulnerability, like you suspected. My quick bullish take for the week is something that I always kind of forget heading into the Masters every week, because I get so fired up about it, like more excited for this event than anything on the schedule. And I forget that the first couple of days trying to watch the Masters kind of sucks. Like, you don't like you don't get it till 3 p.m. But have no fear, John. Amazon Prime to the rescue. You have all seen the commercials. Amazon Prime is going to give us an additional 2 hours on both Thursday and Friday. So will it start at 8 a.m.? Unfortunately, no, but we're baby steps over at Augusta National. Instead of going to the ESPN coverage starting at 3, Amazon Prime filling the gap starting at 1 p.m., giving us some crucial end of round finishes for those guys in the morning wave on both of those days. I am thankful for Amazon Prime and Augusta National for opening up that coverage window. Eventually, we will get full on Spectrum morning to last tee box coverage of the Masters, but we're going to take it in baby steps. Bullish on Amazon Prime, bullish on vulnerability. Without further ado, let's hit the course guide. Back with the course guide for TPC San Antonio, the Oaks course. In this segment, of course, presented by the good folks over at Wolfhammer Golf. God, I wanted to get on the course so bad this weekend, John, but I was rained out today. Friday, life got in the way in more ways than one, but I cannot wait to get back out there and revolutionize my weekend game with the app called Wolfhammer. 15,000 variations customized to your specific betting profile, US Gin like integrated so you can see everyone, you can get your bets in, you can use this app. John, Wolfhammer's doing us a great deal of service by presenting the course guide. You should go download that app. Anyone out there checking out this show, tell them that we sent you over. First month's on us. Wolfhammer live in the App Store. What do you think, John?
Hell yeah. You know, the weather is toying with me here in New York because it was 60 to 70 and sunny Monday to Thursday. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to sneak out a little early on Friday. I'm going to play. And it like dumped buckets on Friday afternoon. And then it was like down to 30 the rest of the weekend. I'm like, why can't we just have nice weekend weather? So if this happens again next week, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to use the Wolfhammer feature where I can just bet on my friends because I got friends in warmer climates like you in Florida who can go in the Wolfhammer app, play a match, and I can bet on them on the front nine, on the back nine, see how they're doing, press them, text them that I'm pressing them. You know, it's really revolutionized the way that we bet on golf, you know, from watching on TV to watching remotely with our friends playing the game. I love it. Can't endorse it enough. Everybody, please, if you're watching this show, download Wolfhammer before it gets warmer so that you're ready to hit the ground running in the rest of the spring.
Hey, I got the Wanderers Club shootout on Sunday. I got to get geared up for this thing. 10 guys from the season of Monday through April qualified. One guy eliminated per hole. You want action on Joe Idoni, maybe go over to the Wolfhammer app and get that. But John, tell me about the Oaks course. Break it down for me.
The Oaks course. So I wrote in my tournament preview, this is not my favorite course. It grows on me a little bit more every year that goes on, but here's what we're working with at the Oaks course in San Antonio. 7,438 yards, par 72. We've been in that yardage range for the last 4 weeks. It feels like we're always sitting at around 7,400. For some reason, this course really favors the accurate players. You look at Brian Harmon winning last year. Matt Kuchar was in the mix before that. JJ Spawn has won here. There's a reward to just keeping the ball in play at the course. Akshay is an accurate player, for sure. So, and even Denny that year is not a bomber by any means. And he plotted his way around here. So even though it's the same yardage, it's kind of opened the door for the more accurate players. Historically, it's a Greg Norman design. He's kind of known for more of these resort style courses, not a ton of nuance to them, which is another reason why I'm not the biggest fan of this course. It had some consultation from Sergio, similar to how Brooks had consulted last week at Houston. Sergio, for the same reasons, like, can we get more guys playing this event in the week or two before the Masters? I don't think they were as successful about implementing Augusta-like features to this course, by any means. But nonetheless, they tried. The agronomy here is not really a pure anything as far as what I'm seeing on the sheet. It's POA, but it's rye overseed, and it's nothing like the POA that we know from California. So I don't really take grass stats into account too much this week since it's such a hybrid of everything. And the rough is low. It's listed at 3 inches. It's usually, in a dry climate like they've had, it's not going to be much of a factor this week. So really, when we talk about off the tee, slight misses are fine. Big misses are heavily penalized. It's the Oaks course for a reason. There's dense tree lines on this course, left and right. There's always tree trouble, but you have to really slice it to find it. So if you're just running out the fairway, you're fine. And I think that's probably why we see those Harmons and Kuchars kind of do well here, because you can play yourself out of position pretty frequently, not unlike the Florida swing where instead of water for a big slice or something, you're just punching out laterally from the tree line. So something to watch there. I think overall importance on control off the tee and then iron play. And then the last thing I'll say about this course, it's super, super weather impacted and weather dependent. Corey Connors won here when it was completely soaked in water.
Yeah.
Almost couldn't even get the tournament in. Completely soaked, easy conditions. Last year, Brian Harman wins at 9 under. He shoots +3 on Sunday and still wins easy. Nobody was getting past -6 besides Brian Harman, who was super tough, and that's because of the wind and the firm conditions. Looking at the forecast this week, it looks a lot more similar to what we had last year. They're still in like a little bit of a drought in San Antonio, and the gusts are looking pretty nasty on the weekend. I don't like to overreact to wind a week out, but it's looking pretty fiery out there. So I actually think, reference what we saw last year. I think we're going to get a very similar type of course this year again.
All right, let's look at what we had last year. I'm going to bring it up now. The Data Golf kind of spreadsheet here on Brian Harman's victory, 3-shot victory, and where he was able to do the most damage. And you mentioned the approach play and the putting, which is kind of what we would expect from Brian Harman. Ryan Gerard right there as well did it around the green and with the putter. But when you look at this leaderboard, Novak, Hoagie, Collie, these type of players are certainly guys that you would not prioritize in terms of distance off the tee. And you see that up here in the top section, one of the lowest distance ratings of any course in the golf data golf database. And then obviously accuracy is prioritized as well as the other thing. A lot of short wedge opportunities given inside of 125 yards for a relatively long golf course. But then you get that little bump from 250 plus there as well. Anything here kind of, John, stick out, or does this kind of reiterate exactly what you were looking for? And on top of that, what do you have for decent comp courses for the Oaks course?
Yeah, when I look at this page, and again, I think it's so important to look at the years where the weather conditions are what we're going to get this week, which 2025 definitely was, at least, assuming that the wind forecast holds, we know it will be just as dry. So if that continues, not really a mid-iron course. It's an emphasis on wedges and long irons. That, again, makes sense. Brian Harman.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah, I mean, it can be very volatile when you're playing in the wind. Like, I don't think many people expected to see a leaderboard like this. The field was good. The field was good last year.
Yeah,
It's even better this year.
We'll talk about it in a second. And even going back, like you even look at 2024, right? And you're like, oh, -20 was the playoff, right? You're thinking guys just torched this course. Not really. I mean,
No.
only Rory and Russell Henley got into double digits under par. Now, Denny and Akshay went off and beat everyone by 9 strokes, including Rory that week. So it wasn't necessarily that it played super easy that year either, but you see where they were able to be dominant. It was the approach play, of course. #1 for Batia, 7 for McCarthy, 3rd for McIlroy, 2nd for Henley. Each of the top 4 guys, anyone who got beyond double digits under par was inside the top 7 in approach play for that week. So kind of very similar there. I'm sorry that I cut you off, John, but what do you have for comp courses?
Yeah, comps. I don't think there's a perfect one-to-one comp for this week because it's like a mainland course with a ton of wind, which we get in Texas. We don't really get that too many other places.
Yeah.
And it's hard to navigate the wind with mainland. Like if you're on the coast, you know where the wind is coming from. In mainland, it kind of comes from everywhere. You get swirling winds. Not everybody gets the same wind. Like guys who tee off on 10 are dealing with a different type of wind than guys who tee off on 1. So it just ends up being more volatile, which is what we saw on the leaderboard. Again, a lot of good players played last year, but the cream didn't really rise to the top at all. So sometimes that just happens with wind splits. For comp courses, then I'm looking at links courses where wind is a factor, especially for this week when we know wind's going to be more of a factor. Brian Harman, an Open champion. Jordan Spieth always plays well here, an Open champion. Akshay is great in the wind. Even most recently at Bay Hill, he played very well, needed to play well in the wind. So guys who can play well in the wind, super important to me. Pebble Beach, I think, is a good comp. Just windy, and you don't have to be super long. Like if you're accurate in the wind, I would look there. The Texas courses in general, I think, are good. I like Colonial the most of the courses on the Texas swing because, it's a little bit similar yardage and, hitting similar clubs there and dealing with the wind. So I'd look at Colonial. And actually, randomly, I do like PGA National for this because
you were going to say that. That was the one I was waiting for.
Yeah, because I mean, the old PGA Nash where it was a test and they didn't neuter your boy, obviously. But when you were getting those single digit winners, it's the kind of the same thing where, like, if you're squirrely off the tee, you're in the water. If you're squirrely off the tee here, you're punching out laterally. It's a lost stroke either way. So you kind of need it. PGA National is a course where these accurate guys do well because they avoid that significant miss, and that will do well here. Plus, you have to navigate the wind. So I'm looking at that too. I think there's some decent overlap with guys who play well at those two courses, and not something I usually compare to because it's Bermuda versus whatever hybrid we're playing this week. But those would be the ones I'm looking at.
We've got a bunker in the middle of the green. We've talked before about how I feel about that. Actually, I think a really cool finishing hole at the Valero
Yeah.
Texas Open, which we see a lot. What are we thinking for live from the tout house this week before we leave the course? Are you going to play something like over onto the roof like we saw Jordan Spieth do, or what do you have on deck for us?
I think that is the route I'm going to go. Actually, I was playing around with that line today, testing out the new projector. I'm just getting all the angles.
4K, of course.
Of course. So I couldn't wait. I needed to see what I was dealing with. I think I am going to do blind shot. I'm going to manipulate it a little bit because Spieth was laying up, which isn't fun. So I'm going to try to hit like a 200-yard shot over the house that he got his ball stuck on and just try to land it on the green is the goal for this week.
Stay tuned, folks. All right, you ready to hit some bets?
Let's do it.
Betting board for the Valero Texas Open. Surprisingly, really good field. A lot of guys wanting to get that final tune-up before the major championship, and they head to Augusta National. Tommy Fleetwood in the field leading the way at 14-1. You get Russell Henry. You get Ludwig, our first time seeing him since the Players' Championship crumbling. Bobby Mack, who made that run at the Players at 16-1. You get Siwoo, you get Morikawa inside 20-1. We get the first sight of Colin Morikawa back. We'll see how he is able to test out that back injury that he, of course, suffered at TPC Sawgrass. Spieth, Højgaard, Matsuyama. Højgaard currently in the field. We'll see if that stays as well. But these are the early numbers on Sunday night here over at the Sportsbooks. John, where are your eyes drawn to at the top of this board based on the course we're playing this week?
Yeah, I was looking at the odds right before this, and honestly, I'm pretty disgusted by them. This is a lot of names under 25-1. Usually, the first couple guys eat up the win equity, and then the rest of the guys you get into the 20s. We've got 6 guys under 20. I hate that. So I'm hoping that we get a little bit more competition from the books. We find a little bit better odds to work with. But the storyline here is that there's a lot of good players in the field. And we need to make a decision on who's here for a tune-up, who's trying to find something, who has to be here to win and get in. What's everybody's motivations? I tend to default to these are competitors. They're here to compete. And then there's usually some exceptions. Rory, when he came here, he's come here once and he literally said afterwards, like, I just needed to visualize the shots I wanted to hit at Augusta. Like I wasn't competing this week. I was literally just going through the motions. That's Rory. And he cares more about Augusta than anyone. I think for a majority of the field, if you're in the field, you're trying to win. So I don't really subscribe to that narrative that guys are just trying to find something. When I look at the board, I'm interested in Tommy. He checks all the boxes. I wrote in my article this week, the spotlight was all on Robert McIntyre. I am very surprised to see him under 20-1 because we always get a good number on Bob Mack. Even at the Players, there was a really good number available on him. I didn't take it. But I like a lot of things about Bob Mack. So I'm committing to him no matter what. He'll be on the card. I don't like the number, but I'll still bet him. Links player, great in the wind, really high floor right now. He's just top 15ing everywhere. He's rising up the world golf rankings, really in control of the driver, which I love here. I mean, that's how Gary Woodland won this most recent week. And the approach play is coming. Like he was good on approach at Sawgrass. You can get away with not being the best approach player at this event, I think, if you only need to be, single digits under par.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that I like about Bob Mack. He's my first bet this week.
So you're in on Bob Mack.
I'm in.
Okay.
I mean, I haven't bet it yet because I want to see if that number gets better, but he will be on my card for sure.
The interesting one, I think, of course, that I'm circling as a guy that, had he not withdrawn at the Players, would be the favorite in this field. And it's Colin Morikawa because he's the perfect course fit. Now he doesn't have a ton of course history here. I believe 2024 was the only time he played it, and he finished 75th. So not a good week for him. However, he is number one in the field in ball striking. He is third in approach. He is fourth in off the tee. He is fifth in fairways and regulation. He is second in greens and reg, and he's making a ton of birdies right now. So he is a perfect fit in terms of looking for an accuracy player who fits that mold of those other guys who is just going to find the fairway and hit his irons really close, which allows you to be able to score at this golf course. So if that number flirts with 20, it is going to be very tempting to me. I would love to. I'll be definitely tuned into his pre-tournament interview to see what his practice habits has been, and really how long was he sidelined. Like,
Yeah.
was it an injury? Like, was it a tweak where he felt better 3 days later, or was there a significant strain of the back that caused him to be sidelined for a few weeks? Horrible price, but let's just have the conversation for what it's worth before we leave this page on Jordan Spieth. Champion here in 2021, always plays phenomenal at the Valero Texas Open. This is one of his better courses, and the form is sneaky coming around right before Augusta. 12th at the Genesis, 11th at the Arnold Palmer Invitational, 11th at the Valspar. The approach play is trending in a very positive direction for Jordan Spieth, even at the Players, a 32nd, but he gained 5.5 on approach that week, just got bludgeoned with a couple of balls in the water and putted terribly. He always putts really good here. Last year, he gained 5 strokes putting at this event. 2021, he gained 5 strokes putting at this event. It's doable, a great course fit. 20-1 is an outrageous number, but what's your outlook on him more so heading into the Masters?
Yeah. Well, I remember this time last year, the Easter Spieth narrative was really circulating because he won this event on Easter, and like it was the first time the Masters was being played on Easter since then. We're going to get Easter Sunday Spieth at Valero this week again, so that might be something to monitor. I'm pretty sure when he won the Masters, it was also on Easter, so there's something about that that we might want to monitor this week. I hate 20 as well. I'm really hoping that some of these numbers get a little bit better. Spieth's course history is great, and the form is actually the best we've seen from Spieth in quite some time. He plays his courses really well. That's why he's always, a favorite at the Masters. Like, he has a game plan that works, and he's good at going back to it. I don't hate it. I could see myself going Bob Mack, Spieth, and a bunch of long shots. The middle of the board is not totally calling out to me this week. I will say the Højgaard number at shorter than a lot of these other names is crazy to me. I feel like that's a big overreaction to, yes, he looked great last week, but I don't think he should be that short. So, there's other options here that I could talk myself into, but it's really Spieth and McIntyre on the first page for me.
Let's talk page number 2 then. You mentioned there's not a lot of guys here you love. There's Thor at 25-1. T14 at the Houston Open. I believe he needed to top 10 in order to get himself into the Masters. So we're going to need another good week out of Thor. Ricky's there at 27-1. Past champion Spawn at 31-1. I really like Sepp Straka at 32-1. Now, here's a guy, the Players, I had like 80-1 on him. He got down to like 60, but is really starting to strike it really well again for Straka. Any thoughts on kind of that play there at 32-1? But that was my first pull.
Yeah, the Thor Bjornsson thing is actually a really good example when we talk about narratives and motivation, because I think that got in his head today. I think he needed to shoot a crazy number to win the tournament, and I think he recalibrated and was like, let me just finish top 10 this week, and it killed him. And now, like, you've stopped at a moment in time for qualifying for the Masters. So now here it's win and get in. Like, there's no placement points anymore. There's one last spot up for grabs, and you've got to win the tournament. So I throw all the narrative stuff out the window. And I don't really love the course fit for him. So I don't like that number course fit. I'm not going to be there on Thorbjornsen this week. I think McNeely is interesting. I just don't like the number. He finished, third here. Just been really solid this season. And then I actually am with you on Straka. If I bet anybody on this page, he's everything that you want to see in a player here. Hits it on a string, completely in control, doesn't have a wipey miss or anything. Good approach player. The short game hasn't been fantastic. I think you can get away with that here because the greens are a little bit bigger. And PGA Nash comp, like if I'm going to commit to a PGA Nash comp, he's one there. So I like that. I thought about Nick Taylor. I just kind of forgot about Nick Taylor for a while. He hasn't been mixing, but I looked at his numbers. They're not that bad. And this is a Nick Taylor course where it's a little bit windy, rewards accuracy and iron play. So if that number gets a little bit longer, I might be there. But the rest of this board, I can't imagine Gary Woodland stays in the field. I would be shocked if he does.
PGA Nash comp. What about Boog? 55-1, DB straight vibing. Nearly won. Actually, coincidentally, Akshay has won both these events. Akshay actually took the API from him, but he looked great that week. Plus 5.7 on approach at the COG, plus 7.9 at the API on approach, plus 2.8 at the Players Championship. T30 at this event last year, but he's finally starting to cure some of those historically bad putting woes that were just ejecting him out of tournaments. I've got him second in the field in approach, seventh in ball striking. The guy is going to get on the greens here and has that sort of low, play it in the wind, fairway finder that still manages to go 305, 310 yards. That is perfect for Florida. It's also perfect for Texas. So if Berger can kind of continue that form, I think if anybody highlights a value proposition on the second page, I think 55-1 is someone that I would look to there.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally right. Like I talked about Pebble Beach as a comp, he's won there. I talked about Colonial as a comp, he won there the first start off the restart from COVID. So
I forgot about those two. I'm in now.
Like
I'm in on Berger.
Yeah, I feel like I have no choice now. I actually, I was looking back on last year's article. He was my spotlight player last year at this event. So obviously, there's a lot that I like about him that you are, unearthing as we speak on this podcast. So I might have to join you on that.
See, listen, this is kind of what you get when we change to Sunday nights recording it. Sometimes we're picking up rocks as we do the show, and this is one that we've unearthed a little gem here. Daniel Berger 55-1. We have the tendency, John, when we shout these guys out and we bet them on Sunday night to all of a sudden get screamed at on Twitter when they finish the week at 38-1. So go grab Berger at 50 plus now. The sports books that are up there. Page 3 of the odds board. Here's a giant list of players. Mr. Denny McCarthy is got the bait on a hook, and he's pulling me back in, John Hasselbauer, with a good finish this week. Obviously, I thought we were getting that across the finish line before he dunked one in the playoff. But T26 at Valspar, T12 at Houston. He's had 3 consecutive top 20s here, including the playoff, where he gained enough strokes in that event at the 2024 Valero Texas Open from a pure strokes gain perspective that would have, I forget the number, but it would have won him like 97% of tour events all time. He just ran up against Akshay on the wrong week. I'm kind of feeling my boy getting back in the mix this week. The putter is much better. Approach play solid 2 weeks in a row. Let's throw a 70-1 in front of his name, and I might take the bait.
Yeah, I mean, just a raw deal he was given against Akshay because it was incredible watching this guy hoop from every part of the green on the back nine. It was like Stenson and Phil at the Open. With just 2 heavyweights playing in a league of their own. So
9 under par round 4 to chase him down, dude.
Yeah. No, he deserved a share of that title. Like if they wanted to just co-win that one, I would have been all for it because they both deserved it. I'm gonna be honest, this page, I don't see a ton that I like. Thorbjorn Olesen has great course history. I think he was T5, T15 his first 2 and played really well at Houston. So he might be percolating a little bit. think you could probably get a little bit of a better number than that. We'll see if it gets any better.
Yeah.
It
Is there
Finau at
one beyond
85.
this that's not on this page that you saw when you were looking at the board earlier today?
Yeah, I would say two guys that I think are going to be popular, just off of their finishes on Sunday, that I would recommend hopping on as soon as you can would be Johnny Kiefer, who's beyond 100 to 1, ball striking the hell out of it, just hasn't been able to hit a putt. And even last week, he was like pretty neutral putting, and it was good enough for T3, I believe. So Kiefer is finally coming into his own, one of the most decorated guys from the Corn Ferry Tour in a long time, number one in qualifying last year, has looked really good, and finally the short game's catching up. So I'll be betting Kiefer. And Yellow Miraju, still hot.
Yeah.
Not the
What's his
plotter.
price?
He's beyond 100 to 1 too.
Okay.
Or at least he started there. So those two guys I definitely want some exposure to because they're hot. Ball striking is phenomenal. This is a ball striker's course. If you hit enough putts, great, but I think ball striking gets you there in a week like this. And if I want to go top heavy, I need those long shots to complement it. So those are two guys I definitely, we'll see how long they stay long shots because the secret's kind of out, but circling around them.
Ball striking always gets you there. How about another guy who's had another good week on approach, plays well in Texas, sitting there at 85 to 1. I'm going to bring him on screen. This is more of not a take on whether he's going to win, but what's your take on this look from Tony Finau?
I love it. I love it.
I think I love it, but then I'm like, if we're getting away with this, we could be opening up Pandora's box bigly in terms of outfits. I mean, this is like, I feel like he could rock this on South Beach, dude.
Sure. Well, he can bring it to Doral then.
I mean, is that a wife beater underneath?
It is, and is that a Jordan logo on a button down?
Yes.
I've
I
never
mean, the
seen
button
that
down is
before.
fire. Like, don't get me wrong. I just don't know. Like, honestly, if I show up to like a course in this, like say you're going to like a nice country club you get invited to, I don't know that you can get away with this.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if
especially 3 buttons down, like down below the chest.
Yeah, well, listen, the Malbon guys I think have gotten away with worse. And I don't know that Tony's pulling up down Magnolia Lane with that. I actually don't think he's qualified yet. I don't think he's allowed in the building at the moment. They wouldn't let him do it, and maybe that's the litmus test. But I got to tell you, when Tony Finau won the Houston Open a few years ago, I bought his Jordans that he wore that the day that he won, which are fire. And I don't really feel comfortable wearing those to a nice country club either. So, there's kind of a line. Like if I'm playing with my boys, I'll wear the Jordan brand. If I'm playing at a stuffy country club, I won't.
Very good stuff. Thank you for your comments on the odds board. Thank you for a phenomenal breakdown on the Oaks course this week, Mr. Hasselbauer. Excuse me. And as I wanted to kind of, I want to kind of go back to some of the old roots of PL, and I hope you bear with me for a second here, John, but kind of make a closing statement to end the show tonight. It's been a week for me personally, and I think I just want everyone out there to hopefully take a second to realize and humanize the quote unquote characters that are on the outer sphere of this 2026 semi-virtual reality that we all live in. Whether that is Tiger Woods, who I think in a moment we could appreciate and use a little bit more compassion towards. Whether that is Gary Woodland on the other side, who you spoke about, who was desperately freed by humanization. Whether that is Riggs, or whether that is Dan Rappaport, or whether that is Matthew Wiley, or whoever it is on the internet. I just think that we could all hear this out and use a little bit of grace in dealing with all these people and not rush to judge. We are so conditioned, John, to witness a moment form an opinion and hit send before we even really truly take a second to breathe and understand our own take in many of those circumstances. In a rush to judge, in that frantic like race to be the first to point the finger, we relinquish a lot of that humanity in ourselves. And when we kind of take these people that are around us and that we engage with and reduce them to, what is it, 280 or so characters, we are choosing oftentimes, in light of that, to ignore the invisible weight that they also may be carrying, right? That we come on this show every week and you see the 10% of the iceberg that is above the water, but you don't know what's going on in our lives, just like we don't know what's going on in Riggs' lives or Matthew Wiley's lives or Dan Rappaport's live right now. And I think that one of the things with dealing out these hot button takes that I'm sure you'll get plenty of this week from various other shows, and that's okay, right? That is the industry, and that's part of what we do here. But what I wanted to do is take a few seconds to use my time here at the end of the show to also remind everyone that while it's okay to laugh and be funny, it's also important to remember that these individuals, just like us, just like those people that are close to you, are probably dealing with something below the surface in their lives. And every person that we encounter is a world of stories, of hope, of heartache. Our role models, our athletes, our influencers are no different. Certainly, they've chosen to be public figures, which makes them open to criticism. But I know personally, in going through this at a very small, minute level, because I am uncomparable to any of those figures, but the additional mental toll that negativity online can take when you are dealing with a little bit of a personal fire, it can add gasoline to that personal fire. So this is a gentle reminder to everyone out there that the high road is often far less traveled, and it will make a much smoother ride through life for you and those around you the more that you sometimes choose to take it, especially in weeks of turmoil like this, when talking about other people that you don't fully understand. That's all I got. Does that make sense, John?
I love that. That's why we're podcast partners, because we are two people who lead with compassion and lift people up when they're down and don't tear people down when they're up. And there's a human behind everybody on the keyboard. And I
Most like Twitter,
Well,
not
yeah,
always a
sometimes there's
human.
bots. Sometimes
Yeah.
there's bots, and they get what they have coming to them. But more people than not are humans. And I really think like being at TGL, um, it humanized things for me. Where like I'm not going to talk down on golfers or people in the media because they're people, and we walk the same walks of life as you just said. I might be more critical about my fantasy team and the players on it than I am about the people in the golf community because I know them and it's important to me. We're walking through the same walks of life. I mean, I'm not the type of person that like tweets at the people on my fantasy team. I'm just saying now that I'm in this orbit and it's not just on the internet and it's going to places in person and seeing people and being happy for them when you see their success, it's not worth it to tear people down or jump to conclusions before everything's out there. So I think that's why you and I were intentionally not firing off takes about Tiger and all these other things. Like let's see how it plays out before we give our takes, and you've heard them on this show.
You've heard them on this show. You will hear them again next week for the Masters, baby. Big one next Sunday night. We may have a special guest on the show. We appreciate the heck, and we are extremely filled with gratitude for each and every one of you that have allowed us to be a part of your golf content journey each and every week. Do us a favor, subscribe to the Read the Line YouTube channel. John and I sat there in a meeting and we told Keith Stewart before the Masters, you will be at 1,000 subs, Keith. And we're close. So if you're watching this show right now and you have not subscribed to the Read the Line YouTube channel, you can help us reach that goal. You can lift us up to have a better week, and we hope that we did the same for you. On behalf of John, I'm Joe Idoni. This has been another episode of the Preferred Lines podcast. Go hit a winner leading into Augusta National. We'll catch you same time, same place, same dudes next week for another episode previewing the Masters. Thanks again. We're out of here.